Hi, I'm Rob, and in this Gems of War video I'm going to give you my opinion on what is good and bad in the Soulforge this week, as well as what I think is the best mythic in the Soulforge. As well as that, I'm going to give you my opinion on the new troop, the new weekly troop we get. We'll be taking a look at this as well, the Sapphire Giant. But anyway, what did Batman say to Robin before they got in the car? Robin, get in the car. I know. Sorry, it's just shocking. Oh god. Anyway, the Sapphire Giant is the new weekly troop this week. Let's take a look. Deals magic based damage, so the higher your magic, the higher your level in the game, the more damage you will do to an enemy, single enemy. Then convert 5 red gems to blue giant gems. Okay, still haven't seen what these giant gems do, so this is going to be impossible to judge today, I think. The traits are inflict frozen when doing skull damage, reduce damage from skulls by 50% is pretty decent, as is inflict frozen when doing skull damage, and create a blue giant gem when I take skull damage. So yeah, I literally can't judge this yet because I haven't seen what these giant gems do. They could, you know, be a little bit bigger than normal. They could take up 4 spaces of normal gems and create 5 times more mana than normal. Literally haven't got a clue, so I cannot judge this guy just yet. So the Sapphire Giant is going to be sat on the fence and awaiting a judgment. Anyway, so anyway, you would want to grab these anyway if you can. Take them all the way up to Mythic, because that way you can get this guy traded and leveled up to level 20, and that is going to aid your power level kingdoms in the long run. So definitely worth getting anyway, and definitely worth ascending if you have the glory. As well as that, always worth grabbing Spoils of War every week up to level 10. Again, if you have the excess glory, those souls and gold and event keys are handy, even if the treasure maps are just tossed into that room full of that never-ending pile of madness that is your treasure map pile of bigness. Alright, let's take a look at the weapons first. The Ice Aegis steals magic-based attack and armor from an enemy, and if the enemy is a boss, freeze all enemies and barrier all allies. Okay, that's interesting. The fact that it steals attack and armor is good, because that takes it away from them and adds it to your own. And the higher your level, the higher your magic, the more effect you'll get from that. But if the enemy is a boss is interesting, the fact that it freezes all enemies, because all the bosses themselves are either impervious or invulnerable. Enraged Kurandara, Hattai Ascendant, Scroll Reborn and Zul'Goth. The bosses, and they are basically all immune to freeze. So it's kind of freeze everybody else unless you manage to get Essence of Evil or something like that on some of these guys. But barrier all allies is certainly useful as well. So that will have its place, that weapon. Very situational though, by the sound of things. Ginormous Cleaver is even bigger than the Enormous Cleaver. Deals magic-based damage to an enemy boosted by Stormheim allies. Then create a mix of 6 blue and yellow for each Stormheim ally. So this uses brown and purple, therefore you're going to need Stormheim allies that use blue and yellow to get the most out of this. At least 1 or 2 troops, otherwise you're defeating the object of this weapon. But if your team does fulfill those requirements, then that can be very good indeed. Zephyros' Bolt. Deal a low amount of scatter damage, and if Zephyros is on my team, explode 5 gems. So you will want Zephyros on your team, because exploding 5 gems can be a lot of mana, can also result in an extra turn, and there are lots of good things about that. It can be good for finishing opponents off. Sometimes you'll have cast spells with more powerful troops and they'll have done damage and left just some troops lingering around on a low amount of health. This is where these low scatter damage weapons can be handy for just finishing off those low health opponents and mopping up, so to speak. What else we got? Not going to go over all these ones that are here all the time. They've been mentioned in previous Soulforge videos. Doomed Hammer. Deals magic-based heavy splash damage to an enemy, +4 per tempering level, stun all blue allies, cleanse all blue allies, explode 4 gems, and if the enemy has a doom, explode 3 more. So a lot going on there with this. It is very, very, very situational. The fact that we stun all blue enemies means that it's preferred to be used on a Guild Wars Blue Day or something like that. And cleanse all blue allies is if we're using an all blue team against a mostly blue enemy. So very, very situational like that as well. And there are other ways to get cleanse in the team that are easier than this. So it's kind of a bit meh. Even there's easier ways to get stun these days, and you can only stun the blue enemies at the same time. So it probably does have its place, but I think there are better weapons to do the same jobs. And the best Doom weapons for me are the ones that change a certain colour to a Doom skull and do really lots of damage, or create a load of skulls, things like that. Love those doomed weapons. These ones like this, super, super situational and a bit collectible in that way then. Axe of the Storm. Remove all blue gems. Deal a magic-based damage to an enemy boosted by the gems removed. If the enemy is from Stormheim, or if the battle is in Stormheim, deal double damage. So this is like a anti-giant team, an anti-Stormheim team. If you go to a battle in Stormheim, or you're fighting an enemy from Stormheim, and they use majority blue, which giants do, and lots of rhymes going on here, that was a good little poem, then basically this is a good way to counter them, because you remove all those gems with no effect. But any team using or relying on blue, it does make their job harder. Just make sure you don't need blue yourself, otherwise you'll give yourself a hard time at the same time, which you don't want. Doomed Wand creates 4 green gems plus 1 gem per tempering level. Give magic based armor to all blue allies, and if the enemy had a doom, eliminate all armor from a random enemy. So again, a bit of a strange weapon. Uses blue but creates green. This is another one of those weapons that sounds like it was designed for a specific purpose, which I haven't actually thought about yet. Because it kind of gives armor to blue allies but creates green. That can be a lot of green if you got this thing tempered quite high. At its lower level, it's not going to be very reliable. You are going to need to get it tempered up to make that a decent amount, and therefore it will actually create a lot of green and will often give a extra turn at the same time, which is very good. But again, situational, and sounds like it was required to be in a specific team for a specific purpose. And after that, it's the Cursebreaker stuff and the new stuff we got in because of the new 6.5 update, which I've already gone over. Right, onto the troops now. Start at the bottom this time because the mythics are there first. Torius. Sounds like this is a really low hitting mythic. Requires 24, uses red, green and yellow. But in my case deals a low amount of damage to all enemies, but it is boosted by his attack, life and armor, and knock the first enemy to the back. Knocking the first enemy to the back is not to be underestimated. It can be a really, really useful mechanic. So many teams are just relying on how the team is set up, and knocking that first enemy to the back can really, really just mess up how their team was designed to work, and that can be useful on its own. And the attack is low at first on this. It's not fantastic, but there are ways to get it boosted up, especially in other Tauros teams with other Tauros allies. And then it can be really significant damage. So not the best, but not absolutely terrible either. Ghost Queen is a legendary. We'll come to her in a minute. Ishtara deals magic-based damage to all enemies, then creates 9 yellow gems boosted by blessed allies. Uses yellow itself, so it can actually self-charge, which can be pretty useful. And the yellow gem creation is boosted by blessed allies, which is actually helped by its traits. 50% chance to bless a random ally when my turn begins. Is cool. Reduced damage from skulls by 40%, not bad. And all allies gain 2 random skill points is not that useful at all. But okay. Can be damaging. Is a bit hit and miss on the yellow gems side of things. Sometimes it will create some massive amounts of mana for you, and other times it'll create a load of yellow and somehow align nothing, which can be annoying. The Grey King. Right, this guy is pretty blinking nifty. Destroy all the gems of a chosen colour, and that is with absolutely full effect. So if there's a load of colour there which you want and it's going to charge up your team, you can do that and collect all that mana. Also, you can use that to your advantage to make 4 matches sometimes. Say there's a vertical line of 2 blue, 1 green, 2 blue. You can hit that green one in the middle, say, for example, and then take that away. You'll gain mana for any greens on your team, as well as then match that for, get that mana for the blue as well, and get an extra turn. So you can use it to generate extra turns as well, which is cool. And as well as that, all enemies of that colour take a decent amount of true damage and are mana drained, silenced, and frozen. So the more enemies that use the same colour on the opposition team, the more this guy is useful. If you're against an all blue team, for example, and you got this guy on your team, you can constantly take away blue and you are going to mana drain, silence, and freeze those suckers at the same time. He's absolutely superb. Do love the Grey King. Good traits as well. Undying, really good. Immune to poison, disease, lycanthropy, and deathmark. Deathmark and lycanthropy are particularly annoying. And King's Legion, all undead allies gain 2 armor and magic when matching 4 or more gems, is not bad either. Who's next? The World Breaker. Look at that mana cost, 30. Holy guacamole. Explode 18 gems on the board and deal magic based damage to all enemies. A little while ago this guy was not too bad, but the trouble is now there's been so many weapons that have got excellent mana generation. He's becoming more and more insignificant all the time for me, and especially with that mana cost, there's far easier ways to deal damage to all enemies at way less mana cost than that. Yes, the explode 18 gems is a lot, and that will generate in a lot of mana, but like I say, we've got so many weapons now and other troops that deal that can generate mana in a better way than that, far more efficient. But I don't know, maybe still useful in a team here or there, but he's not that great for me anymore. Immune to devour is useful. Reflect 25% of skull damage is so, and gain 5 to a random skill on 4 or 5 gem matches. Again, is good, but not spectacular. World Breaker. Was that the 4? The World Breaker 1, Grey King 2, yes. Right, so there's the mythics. We'll come back to that in a second because I will tell you who is my mythic pick of the week. But let's just go over the legendaries quickly. The first up is the Ghost Queen. I always say don't craft legendaries because basically you get these far easier in chests than you will mythics. And your diamonds are much better spent, saved for crafting those hard to get mythics. But the Ghost Queen is a particularly good troop. For a start, all undead allies start with 50% mana. So she pairs really well with the Grey King on Brown Day and Guild Wars, for example. Both use brown. Grey King would have a 50% start with mana, which is really cool. She's also undying, immune to poison, disease, lycanthropy, and deathmark, and does true damage too. Steals 7 mana from an enemy, which is cool. Then steals 40 life, which is effectively true damage boosted by purple gems. So she's really good. Do like the Ghost Queen. Very handy indeed. Who's next? Emperor Liang. Hardly ever see this guy in teams, but his spell is actually not too bad when you think about it. Destroy all gems of a chosen colour with full effect. So if there's a lot of a certain colour, you can charge up the team really quickly. But that gives all allies of the matching colour a decent amount of life and 4 magic. So situational, but will work in certain teams. But overall, he's just okay, but he will work in certain teams. He's not diabolical, but he's pretty situational at the same time, and just wait for him to pop up in chests because you're not going to use him that much. Kruarg the Dread. Deals damage to the last 2 enemies. That is handy when you're fighting teams that have, say, stealthy troops in the last 2, so you can't target them. This will actually hit them like that. And if there are 13 or more red gems, summon a random daemon. 5% chance to devour on skull damage can be handy, and impervious is always a good thing. So not too bad, kind of situational, but does have a summon as well as that ability to attack stealthy opponents if they're in the last 2 slots. Summer Imp. Gain 8 magic on yellow gem matches is really, really good. You get this in a yellow looping team and you can boost up that damage significantly really, really fast. Deals magic based scatter damage and create 7 red gems. If the enemy dies, gain 8 magic. This guy won't always be in a team with other troops that use red, so that is the only part of that spell which lets it down in a way, because the idea of this is to basically get it in a, like I say, a yellow looping team and get that magic boosted right up, then cast him once and do a massive damage. But can work in certain teams, but again, wait for him to pop up in chests. But who is my mythic of the week? Well, we already said the World Breaker wasn't that fantastic anymore. Ishtara is pretty decent, but not fantastic. It's like kind of middling kind of mythic. And Torius is good, but basically needs other team members to make him powerful and work. But that's the way bulls work. Bulls aren't single sort of troops that do well on their own. They kind of work best in a pack. And that is kind of the theory behind Torius, I think. Stick him in with other bull members and suddenly he comes into his own and can do a lot of damage. So the Grey King is quite easily my mythic of the week. Really, really good. Pairs really, really well with the Ghost Queen. The spell is fantastic. Destroying all gems of a chosen colour with full effect. Can generate extra turns from that. All enemies of that colour take a decent amount of true damage. A mana drain, silence and frozen. Really, really cool. Can just stop teams in their tracks, and I really like the Grey King. He's one of my top mythics for me, and absolutely love him. And he's my mythic of the week without any shadow of a doubt. So if you have the diamonds, go out and craft this guy. You won't regret it. He's absolutely superb. There it is. There's my Soulforge review. I'm back later with the Sapphire Shard team for the weekly event. So check that out later on. But there it is. There's a video. If you enjoyed it, found anything useful or helpful, be really cool if you hit that like and subscribe button. But most of all, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye for now.